Hey, you guys, I just wanted to jump into your earballs and share something with you that I thought was really exciting. I don't often come onto the podcast to share specific programs and opportunities, but sometimes an opportunity is presented to me or something comes across my inbox that I think is so unique and so special that I really do feel like it's worth taking the time to share it with you guys. So if you have been a listener for a long time, you probably recognize Heather Hubbard's name. She is the owner over at Language of Joy and was on episode number 10 of the podcast. She does some phenomenal work with her clients and runs amazing masterminds and retreats. And this June, she has a retreat in New Mexico called the Life and Law in Balance Summer Retreat. And it's an amazing 4-day experience where she guides her guests through some of the really deep work that's necessary to kind of figure out how to put it all together and get to that next stage in your life as a lawyer. So if that's something that you guys are interested in, I really would implore you to explore it a little further. If you want to get to know Heather a little better or get a refresher, you should pop over to episode number 10 and take a listen, or head over to her podcast, which she launched late last month, which is also phenomenal. It's called Hustle and Flow, and she kind of shares her process and her tips and strategies, and you can get a real good feel for the way that she approaches the work that she does. If you want to learn more, the best place to do that would be to head over to bit.ly at bit.ly/lawyer retreat, and that'll send you over to her page to see all the information you need. And I just want you guys to know in full transparency that I am an affiliate of this program, and I am an affiliate because I do believe that it's something of really great value. So if you guys have any questions, also feel free to email me. I'm happy to answer any questions. I've talked to Heather about this extensively, and I think it's a wonderful opportunity for the right person who's ready to do the type of work that Heather offers. But that's all I have for you guys on this. Enjoy the show. Welcome to the Happy Lawyer Project. I'm your host, Akoma Moronu, and I created this show to help lawyers find happiness in life with a law degree. Together with my guests, we provide the knowledge, insight, skills, inspiration, and encouragement you need to find your happy. On today's show, I chat with Kevin from the Financial Panther about his student repayment process. He's a former Big Law associate who managed to use his time at Big Law to pay off his student loans in just 2.5 years. As you know, I love chatting money mindset, money strategies, so this was a super fun episode for me. We talk about the strategies Kevin used to turbo boost his repayment process and how his money mindset has changed since paying off his debt. Enjoy! Today, I am excited to chat with a practicing lawyer and finance blogger over at the Financial Panther. Hi, Kevin, and welcome to the Happy Lawyer Project.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So I'd love if you could start by just sharing a brief description of who you are and what you do.
Sure, yeah. Well, my name's Kevin. I am kind of your typical law student to lawyer type path. I went to undergrad, graduated with history and econ degrees, which are kind of like the law school majors. And so took a year off, kind of goofed off, then went straight to law school after that, and then kind of went to the Big Law route, worked in Big Law for about almost 3 years. And then just last year, I switched over to state government work and a little bit more time on my hands. I picked up blogging. I've always been into personal finance and wanted to do that and share my story. And kind of the big thing I did was during my time in Big Law, I paid off all of my student loans kind of by just buckling down and, avoiding living like a big shot lawyer during that time. And so that's kind of me in a nutshell there.
That's great. I'm so excited to dive into so many parts of that. But before we go into the finance part, because I know I could get stuck there forever,
sure.
Let's talk a little bit about your legal journey. Look, why did you become a lawyer? There's lots of reasons. I find there's actually only a couple of reasons, really, that people become lawyers. What was your reason?
Yeah, well, if I'm going to be totally honest, it was not a very good reason.
Yep, that's what everyone says.
Which is a lot of people, I mean, when I was in interviews, I'd make up something, but really it was just because I graduated in 2009 from undergrad, which is right in the midst of the recession there, couldn't find a job. My majors didn't really do much for me, I felt. And so law school kind of seemed like a path to take that kind of could, ride out the recession until, and get myself a job, I guess. So that's kind of how I ended up in law school. I've always been kind of good writer and, liked reading. I really didn't like doing math or anything like that and didn't like science. So, all the med and science type things didn't really appeal to me. So it's kind of like if you got history and econ and you like reading and writing, it kind of leads you to law school, I guess.
That makes sense. And you're a great writer. I love your voice on your blog.
Oh, thank you.
I'd be interested in knowing what's the story you tell at interviews for why you went to law school.
Oh, I always make up something about, I always talk about, I grew up in DC, so there are a lot of lawyers there, and so I would just always talk about how, I got influenced by seeing lawyers in action, that kind of thing. not a great like lie, but or great excuse, but that's kind of just how I would spin it,
That's so funny. How did you find law school?
What do you mean?
How was that experience for you? Did you enjoy it? Was it what you thought it would be?
Yeah, so I liked law school. I'm like the kind of person who, if I could, I would just be in school forever.
Me too.
Yeah, I love school. The first year of law school, I didn't like so much because, I moved to a new city and didn't know a lot of people I didn't know anyone really. And it was like a tough transition, especially with how hard that first year is and how much it matters so much. People were always talking about, this first year matters so much. And so I was like constantly working and really stressing myself out that first year. So first year, I really didn't like it. But then the next 2 years, I had no problem with it. It was just like school to me.
And how did you decide to go into big law?
That's kind of just like the default path. A lot of people, I feel like, it's like if you do good in school or in law school, I had all the stuff that you're supposed to have, law review and good grades and all that stuff. And so it just kind of, you do all the interviews and it just kind of leads you that way. And of course, I've got student loans I took out, so I need to pay those back. And, there's not a lot of ways for, when I graduated law school, I was 26 years old. There's not a lot of ways for a 26-year-old to make six figures a year, just like without any work experience, really.
I don't think that that's a bad reason to go. I think that people, especially in the 21st century, most people don't leave college or graduate school thinking that their first job is going to be the job they have forever.
Right. That's true. Yeah. It's definitely a different type of thing. Like, I don't think anyone I've ever talked to, who's our age has ever thought like, oh, I'm going to be at this company or this place for 30 years. Like, it's just not the way.
Yeah. That's just, and I don't think most companies even expect people. Like, companies aren't even set up that way anymore. They don't have like pension plans for people who are lifers, and not every job has like a progression that even allows you to move up in the company anymore. I think work has just changed. So I only say this to kind of let people know who are thinking about big law and like feel this weird pressure to consider partnership. Like, you don't have to consider partnership.
Yeah, but at the same time though, you can't. Like, you don't want to act like you're trying to just get in there and leave, even though they know that's what a lot of people are doing.
Absolutely. But there's like a happy medium, right? Because you can go in there with the intent of, one, keeping your job, which means doing the work, and two, learning as much as you can and building like relationships and connections. And if you're willing to do those three things, they're pretty happy to have you if you're smart enough to do the job. Like,
yeah, no, that's definitely true.
And it's not a bad way to pay back loans. So I would love to dive into the part of your story that I'm most excited about. Tell me a little bit. You said you've always been into personal finance, but were you somebody who went into law school and took out your loans? I mean, I've read your blog, so I know the answer to this, but when you took out your loans, did you have a clear repayment strategy in mind?
So when I took out my loans, I knew that like the loans were a big deal. This was right when I went into law school, it was right around the time when the student loan thing with law students was kind of hitting the mainstream. You're getting a lot of people talking about that. Like you gotta because the legal market was so bad then. And so people are really aware of that, I think, or at least starting to get aware of that. So when I went into law school, I kind of knew like, okay, I'm taking a little bit of a risk here. And so the reason I ended up picking the school I did actually is because it was actually a little bit cheaper than comparable school on the East Coast. So that's why I went over to the Midwest. And so my plan was just kind of like, I got to get this, do really well my first year. And, if I can snag that big law job, I am just going to buckle down and get rid of this really fast. And, luckily for me, it worked out. But I think it was like I took a little bit of a calculated risk, I guess. I kind of knew like, okay, this is kind of where I need to end up, in terms of grades and whatever. And, this is kind of what I need to make. And if I don't, I got to think differently. So I actually remember my first year, I was like, if I don't get this type of grade that I need, I'm probably just going to do something else just because I was worried about taking out way too much and getting stuck.
Good for you. Let's take some balls, but good for you. I feel like so many people don't think strategically about what the loans mean and what the grades mean. Like, just because you get bad grades doesn't mean you're going to be a bad lawyer. I know lots of C student lawyers who make great lawyers because the reality is if you get C's at a top 5 school, you're still pretty smart.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
Just because you now, for some reason, it's such a ridiculous situation because you could be a C student at Yale. They don't have grades, but low pass student at Yale.
Yeah.
And you would have been an A student at a state school possibly.
Right.
And now you would have been a good candidate for that law firm job. But because you made the choice to go to Yale, you no longer qualify for that law firm job. So arbitrary.
Yeah. No, and it's just, I remember telling my friends, who aren't lawyers about how this whole getting a job works thing. And they're just so shocked. They're like, wait, so it's based off of 2 semesters of grades,
Correct.
Interviewing for these jobs. You're literally interviewing from 2 years in advance.
Yeah.
With nothing. You have nothing on your resume.
Yeah. But and the grades, I guess my point to the law school students out there is that the grades are so arbitrary and you can game the grades, right? In some ways. So if you are concerned that you're not going to be a top student at a top school, but you think you could be a top student at a lower ranked school, there's something to be said for going to that lower ranked school because you'll have more job opportunities. I'm not saying going from 5 to 50, but if we're talking about going from 5 to 14, and it's hard to know, you have to really know yourself.
Right. No, and that's an interesting point because I always kind of wonder about that, because I basically was picking between 2 schools, one on the East Coast and one in the Midwest, and the one in the East Coast was a little bit better, but just more expensive. And I always wonder, I probably would have done worse there, and would I, what kind of position would I have been in? I don't know. There's no way to know except unless we could go back in time, but. Yeah, it's a good point that you make.
I had never thought of this, so it's not my point. I had met a girl who I'm now good friends with who went to Brooklyn Law, which is a school I had never heard of, never considered. I knew I wanted to go to school in New York. She got a full ride because she was coming from a good school, had good grades, and was top of her class. So came out of law school, now works at a top 10 law firm with no loans.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty good. Good
right?
Position to be in.
That's a phenomenal position for her. And she was able to really buckle down and make the most out of the situation and really know herself and know why she was at the school she was at. But then there's also something to be said for getting the exposure that you get to the type of people and professors and relationships that you get from going to a top school. So there's a huge spectrum of things to consider. And I just encourage people to think of them in a really dynamic way because the loans are such a big deal.
Right. And that's one thing. It's a lot of people, and it's you go to law school, a lot of people are 22 years old, 23 years old. It's you don't really think how much of an impact could these loans have on me, for the next decade or more of my life. And it's just, it's something you got to really think about a lot. You got to have an idea of what you're going to do.
So how much loans did you have and how long did it take to pay them off?
Yep. So I graduated with $87,000 in student loans, which is less than a lot of people
that is
would think. one thing I do say though is, in the Midwest here, the market salary is not 160. It's 110. So I feel like it's like sort of equivalent,
Yeah.
like to if I had 150 and, was making 180 or something like that. But yeah, so, I had 87 and it took me 2.5 years to pay them off. So, I kind of started for real in 2014, and by mid 2016, I had made my last student loan payment.
God, how good did that feel?
Oh, it was awesome. It was awesome.
So what was your philosophy? Like, you obviously had to sacrifice some things. What kind of things do you think that you weren't doing that other people were doing that allowed you to pay it off so quickly?
Yeah, so one thing for sure is I did my best to avoid lifestyle inflation, which I think is like a trap that so many lawyers fall into. You leave school and suddenly it's like you have to upgrade everything, and especially if you start getting that big paycheck. And, I know with my colleagues, everyone I saw, they're all living in luxury apartments. It's like there's basically two type of apartments I see. It's like normal apartments and luxury apartments. At least that's what it looks like, nowadays. But everyone was living in these fancy luxury apartments, and it's just always seemed like such, like you're not even spending that much time there. You're working anyway. Why don't you just live in a normal apartment? And, because like the rent is like the biggest expense for most people. And so, if you can cut down on rent, that really opens up a lot of money. And, my thinking is it's not that hard to just keep kind of living like a student for a while, because you've already been a student before, the only difference is now you've just got a big paycheck. So it's like, well, if you just take 2 years or something, live like a student, or even live like a normal person, because, if you start out in big law and you're making so much money for like a 25, 26-year-old, it's like you could just live like a normal 25-year-old and still have a ton of money to kind of throw into your debt and just kind of clear that out really fast.
Did you have a strategy for making sure that money went towards loans? Because it's easy to say, and I know I said it in the beginning, I was like, I'm going to live off, X amount and the rest is going to go towards loans. But somehow I didn't always make it to my loan payment. It would just kind of dissipate for like little things. I'm not even sure where it would go. Now, I personally automate everything to make sure those payments get made. But I don't know, did you have a strategy, or were you really good about just writing that check every month?
Yeah, so, I had the automatic, like the minimum automated, because, you get that student loan interest reduction if you have it automated that way. But I was too nervous to like automate the full amount I was doing. And so, if you look at my blog, you kind of see I kind of paid like different amounts every month. And so I guess I didn't really automate the actual payoff process. I guess mainly it was just like me really, doing the willpower there, just like, okay, this money is in my bank. Now it's going to the student loan company. But, and like I got a lot of satisfaction every time I did it. I saw, my student loan balance drop like another, couple $1,000 or whatever.
I'm like, you're making me want to get back to my loan repayment. We finished paying my husband's loans off this year, which was amazing.
Oh, awesome.
So in the last 5 years, we've paid off $310,000 in student loans.
Whoa, that is a ton.
Yeah, we went to a lot of school.
Oh my goodness.
So we have our last like 50 or so left.
Yeah.
But it's all like 3% interest. So it's really hard for me to prioritize it.
Yeah.
Paying it off quickly only really saves me like $2,000 or something over the course of what's left.
Right. And that's a tough one, because I know that people are always talking about the interest, like if it's so low, maybe it's better to do it elsewhere. And for me, I was just like, because I refinanced my student loans down to really low,
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I just really wanted to just get rid of it, not have to worry about that, that big chunk of money coming out every month, and just like basically give myself a little bit more breathing room,
For sure.
So that's how I rationalized it, even if it maybe mathematically wasn't the best thing,
I agree, because I think the first kind of chunk of it And the first 3 years, I was gung ho. I was like, most of mine got paid off in the first 3 years. And then once I got my debt to income ratio to be a little bit more favorable, then I refinanced, and then we focused on my husband's for the last 2 years and got his paid off, and kind of just been chipping away at mine slowly. And now what's left of mine is this 50,000. But I feel like we've been so focused on it for so long that a part of me just wants to focus on something else for this year.
Yeah.
Because the amount it feels so small, and I only have a couple more years left, but we'll see. We've decided not to, but talking to you makes me want to go back to it. It sounds so awesome to make that final payment and to be done and to owe nothing to nobody, because we don't have mortgages. We don't have a car payment. We would just be.
Oh, that would be really good. Yeah, to have nothing at all. That'd be nice.
What would you say is your money philosophy?
My money philosophy, that's a good question. I think it's about trying to be humble, I guess. I feel like I don't spend a ton of money. I mean, I'm not a super penny pincher or anything. I can go out to eat all the time and stuff, but I just try to realize, keep perspective, that we're doing, no matter what we think, we're all doing pretty well, I think, as lawyers. And so, and you see this a lot in big law, especially people complain, oh, I'm not making enough money and that kind of thing. And it's just there's so many people who make so much less. If they're able to live, how are you not able to live if you're making 5 times as much? So I guess that's kind of my thing. It's be humble and keep that perspective, when it comes to the money that you've got coming into your pocket.
It's such a good point. I am so shocked by how much lawyers complain about how much money they get paid, because when you ask lawyers what they would want most from their job, very few people actually say more money as number one. And it's almost like the money compensates them for the other things they actually want that they're afraid to ask for. So people want more flexibility. They want more vacation time. They want more freedom in their work at Big Law. They want to not be tied to their BlackBerries.
Right, yeah.
On vacation. But instead they complain about money and they complain about their bonuses. And so firms keep giving them more money. Bonuses keep going up again. Salaries have gone up again for the first time actually in a long time. And people are still unhappy because that's not what they actually want.
Yeah. But see, the problem is, they are spending so much money probably that they just keep needing more. And it's all they can do is just keep working to get more money to pay for whatever thing it is that they want.
Yeah, but it's all it's just so confusing to me because it's a lack of self-awareness, because you ask for money because you need to pay for these things that you have because you make so much money.
Right.
But really what you want is more time.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
If you had if you ask for more time, they might give you a pay cut, and you could afford to take that pay cut if you had less stuff.
Right, exactly. That's the problem. People need the time.
Yep.
But they can't make less money.
Yep. So it is kind of a bind. So I totally get your point about not letting the lifestyle inflation get you, and to have kind of the freedom to take a job that you enjoy a little bit more, that pays a little bit less. That's freedom, right? And that's what life's, I think, at least for me, is kind of about.
Yeah, no, that's kind of what it is for me too, I would love to get financially independent like some of those blockers do.
Yeah, so before we jumped on, we were talking a little bit about our interest in financial independence and that movement and kind of the whole FinCon. I mean, all of my listeners who've been listening for a while know about my obsession with financial independence and the FinCon community. But what does financial independence mean to you? What would that mean for you?
To me, it just means that you don't have to work for the paycheck. You're working because you just want to work. And so, I guess an example in my own life here is, I got all these weird side hustles I do, right?
Yes.
Anyone who goes to my blog can see that I do ridiculous stuff that lawyers shouldn't be doing. But I do them because I think it's fun. And I don't need the money. So it's there's a huge difference when you're doing something and you don't need the money, because it's you just kind of lose a lot of that pressure, So, so we were talking earlier, I've got some dogs here right now, and I've got my own dog, and then I'm actually dog sitting this other dog, right? And that's one of my side hustles. My dogs sit on the side. So it's I I don't need to, dog sit. I just do it because I think it's fun.
I love that you do your side hustles. I love following your side hustle journey. I like seeing how much I have a lot of weird side hustles myself, so I totally get it. How much are you currently making on your side hustles?
Last year I'm still in the middle of putting all that information together. Last year I pulled in about 12 grand or so doing these little kind of dumb side hustles. So
Yeah.
it's not too bad, and it didn't take up a ton of my time to do them.
And if you enjoy it, that's like, it's not even work, right?
Right. No, it's like, yeah, it's just like money for something I was already doing that I wanted to do, So, yeah, like one of my things I do, and, if you go on my blog, you see I do like deliveries on my bike. And it's like, I don't do that. I mean, like, obviously I probably wouldn't do it if I wasn't getting some money for it, but I mainly am doing these deliveries on my bike because I think it's like fun. I'm getting exercise, and it's like, I mean, I can do that all day. It's like you sit down at a computer 8 hours a day. It's like, well, what's a good way to make a little extra money? I could just go bike around town and get paid to do it.
It's shocking how many ways you can make money, like, if you wanted to. Like, you know what I mean?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
There's just so many ways that if you just spend like 30 minutes on the internet, you could make like $20 in the next hour.
Right. No, it is nuts. And with our cell phones and stuff, it's just like there's a whole world of this, and none of this stuff has to take very much time. You can just like do it whenever you feel like it.
Yeah, and if you find stuff that you like that kind of is in alignment with stuff you'd want to be doing anyway, like if you want to get outside more often and like ride your bike more often, it's a great way to get to do that and get paid a little to do it.
Right, yeah. No, it's
I think back to your point about lawyers shouldn't do it. Why do you think that it's stuff lawyers should not be doing?
Oh, okay. Well, so, I mean, I guess there's kind of a stigma with like doing stuff that's beneath you in a way, and I try not to think in that term. Like, I don't think any work is beneath me. I'll do anything if I want to. But yeah, there's just this kind of weird thing where it's like, someone delivering food to you should not be a lawyer. I've had kind of funny scenarios where I've been doing deliveries and I've run into like law students who know who I am.
Yeah.
and they must think I'm like struggling or something. They see me like delivering food, and I'm like, no, I just do this because I like exercising. I think it's fun.
The reason I ask you that is because I still struggle with that. I definitely do. I love kids, and I always think that it would be so much fun to babysit. And my husband's like, you're in your 30s and have 2 children and are like a senior associate in a big law firm. You can't babysit on the weekends. And I'm like,
exactly.
Why not?
There's like a stigma to it. There's something about like, if you're in a good job, you shouldn't do anything else, that like for money that is not that job, I guess.
Yeah, like we were also talking about before we jumped on about questioning assumptions and kind of why we believe the things we believe. And that's why I'm kind of pushing on this, because I hadn't thought about this. But like, if I wanted to be on like a board of a nonprofit, people would think that was like a wonderful way to spend my free time.
Yeah.
But if I want to take care of kids and have someone pay me to do that because I enjoy it, people would think that was really weird.
They would think you're struggling or something, which I don't think it should be, but that's what people would think.
Interesting. Yeah, there is a lot of judgment on how people choose to spend their lives and the work people choose to do. And it's unfortunate because I think that people take that on and then make decisions about what they end up spending their lives on for fear of that judgment. You know, and like, it would be sad to me if someone loved children and didn't spend time with them because they didn't want the stigma of spending time with children. Like, I'm thinking of like, if somebody wanted to be like a party clown on the weekend, like their whole life, they wanted to be a clown and they thought it would be really fun. They couldn't make enough money doing it full time. But I think it would take a lot of self-confidence to be a lawyer during the week and then a party clown for kids' birthdays on the weekend.
Oh, yeah. No, and I've had situations where, I've been doing like some deliveries and the order would go to like someone at my law firm.
Oh no.
And I would cancel the order.
Oh.
Kind of like show up there,
That,
because then I don't know, like it would make me look bad somehow, even though I don't think it should, but that's what it would look like.
Yeah, no, that's so interesting. Because I definitely, when I was in Brooklyn, did a lot more weird things. Like I felt a lot more anonymity because the city's so big and people are just so weird,
Yeah.
And now that I'm in the suburbs, I just know that it would get back to people. Like it's hard for me to stay anonymous long because my neighborhood's so small, my community's so small that, and I'm new. I just don't want people to be like, "Who is this weird girl who does this on the weekend?" But well, maybe next time, maybe when I see you at FinCon, I can tell you about my burgeoning like babysitting business.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I'm not sure that I'm going to have the guts to do it, but I would love to spend more time with kids. I just love kids, and babysitting is like you can like sit in someone's house in the dark at night and they'll pay you to do that. And like,
right.
I would love to write a book this year. So I love the idea of like every Saturday or like once a week having like 4 hours where someone's paying me to sit in their house in the dark and I just write my book.
That would be a good idea.
And like I'm away from my own kids. I like have quiet. I have internet. I could probably charge a lot too because I'm like CPR certified. I'm a grown up. I have like a law degrees of the police shop. Like,
yeah, there's that episode of The Simpsons where there's like this lawyer in The Simpsons, Lionel Hutz, who like shows up to like do some babysitting. He's like, since I'm an attorney, my babysitting rate is $200. And they're like, we'll give you $8 an hour.
All right, so somewhere between 8 and 200. I think I should probably get some business. It's been so much fun talking to you. I would love if you could share some resources that have helped you along your journey. Are there any books, podcasts, blogs that you've enjoyed?
Sure, yeah. Well, in terms of when I was paying off my debt, like kind of like the first thing I discovered was the Dave Ramsey stuff. He like if anyone's trying to figure out how to pay off debt or like really get motivated to pay off debt, like this Dave Ramsey just like really does a good job of motivating people to do that. His other stuff is a little bit.
I was going to ask about how you felt about his credit cards and all his like.
Yeah. Like I don't do any of that. Like I use credit cards. I'm like trying to get into travel hacking and doing all that stuff. So that's like opposite of Dave Ramsey. But
I could go for another hour on travel hacking. So let's not.
Yeah. No, I'm trying to learn that stuff. Like that's a whole new world to me. So
it's so fun.
Yeah. So that's. For debt stuff, Dave Ramsey, a book I really liked a lot, like one of the first personal finance books I found was back in the day was Automatic Millionaire.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of like a classic one. And I think he just wrote or revised it for like Correct. 2017. So might be worth taking another look at it again to see if there's anything new in it. In terms of blogs, when I was first like looking up how to pay off debt, like I remember finding this blog, like No More Harvard Debt.com, which is like,
yes,
it's like that guy. Yeah, it's like kind of an old one. Like when I stumbled on it, it was like done already, but it was like really interesting to see that stuff. And it was just like super motivating. And it's like I was like, wow, if this guy can do it, pay off $90,000 in like 7 months or something, like I should be able to pay mine off, without any problem.
But his was super extreme. He like sold his car and like his motorcycle. Is that the right guy?
Yeah, that's the guy. He like admittedly, he already was like living way too large. Like he had like 2 cars and a motorcycle and a house or something. It's like, why does one guy need all that stuff?
Yeah.
But I just remember reading that stuff. I was like, oh, this is really gonna motivate me to pay off my debt. So that's kind of one of the blogs I discovered. Anything else? It's kind of the main stuff. There's a ton of blogs out there. Like I could talk about them forever, but everyone probably knows Mr. Money Mustache. I remember stumbling upon that, like when I was trying to learn more about this stuff, and that kind of crew of these early retirement bloggers that everyone probably knows about already. Yeah,
I'm so that whole community like baffles me. He's done such an amazing job, and it's so organic. It's really cool.
Yeah, no, it's like good stuff. It really inspires you. It's like, oh man, I could do this.
The thing I love about their community so much is how environmentally focused they are, which I don't think always comes out, but is something that's really important to me.
Yeah, that's true. And that's oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I mean that's something that's like really important to myself as well. Like when I was working in Bigwell, I bike to work every day. Mm-hmm. Like I use the bike share systems around here all the time. Like I love the bike share stuff. Like you have them in. They have it in most big cities now. Those ones where it's like in the dock there. I love those things because like you just walking around, you just like hop on a bike and, it's just everyone's biking around.
Yeah, no, my husband, so we're a one car family in Dallas, which everyone thinks is insane, but we like bike around all the time.
Yeah, Dallas I feel like isn't as bike friendly, right, as some other big cities.
Well, Dallas isn't really a city. It's really just a sprawling suburbia with like a downtown.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so can you tell us a little bit more about what's going on over at the Financial Panther? What are you up to these days? What can people find?
Yeah, so I blog over at financialpanther.co, or you could Google Financial Panther. And, over there I just kind of I blog about paying off debt, personal finance stuff, how to think about money, and a lot about side hustling using like all these sharing economy apps. And most of my stuff I'm just kind of talking from experience and, from things that I've learned myself while I'm doing it. And so, yeah, that's kind of where you can find me. And, I think it's a good resource for people who are just trying to, learn a little bit more about, money and making a little extra money and, trying to get inspired to pay off debt.
Yeah, you do a really good job over there, so people should check it out. Last question before I let you go is, what do you believe separates happy lawyers from those who struggle to find happiness?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's happy lawyers are the people who aren't like stuck, I guess, and I know when, I started out like in big law and I was really stuck there because I had this student loan balance. I needed a paycheck to pay it. And, as I started to kind of like not like work as much, it kind of was like double whammy because I also knew I couldn't leave. So I think that's kind of the big thing, because like right now where I am, I don't like, I could definitely leave. I wouldn't need that kind of paycheck. I could go and do something else. I think it'd be totally fine. So I think to know that you could walk if you needed to is like a big thing to be a happy lawyer.
I think that's right. I think feeling stuck, no one who has felt stuck has ever been happy.
Right.
So there's something to freedom and something to having agency in your own life that definitely impacts your sense of happiness. Well, thank you so much, Kevin, for coming on today and for sharing your story with my guest. And I look forward to seeing you this fall.
Yeah, I'll look forward to seeing you too.
Thank you for joining me for the Happy Lawyer Project podcast. Please head over to my website, www.thehappylawyerproject.com, for more information from today's show. While you're there, I'd love it if you'd leave me your thoughts on the show. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn, Facebook, or follow me on Instagram. If you've enjoyed the show, please share it with your friends. And don't forget to head over to iTunes to subscribe and review the show. As you know, each rating helps more listeners find the show and helps me get awesome guests on here for you guys. If there's anyone you'd like me to have on the show, or if you'd like to be on the show, head over to my website and let me know, or send me an email at okema, OKEOMA, @thehappylawyerproject.com. A special thanks to everyone who's left a review, sent me an email, or reached out to me in any way. I appreciate you. Thank you again for spending this time with me, and if you would like to learn more about working in your gift and living your passion, head over to the website for a free gift. Until next time, bye!